Greetings, friends. The subject of tattoos involves an aesthetic or artistic modification of the body. The question is whether your body is a canvas. Is it a material object like a canvas? Should it be modified in its appearance? Of course, the body does undergo changes in its appearance as it ages, as we age, but should we voluntarily change our appearance in ways that would otherwise never occur to us? So, is there something special about the body? Does it deserve to be left as it is? Now, I believe in keeping our bodies as they are, as far as is reasonably possible. You would probably not be surprised to find that I have never been tattooed, and I do not think getting a tattoo is, generally speaking, a good idea. Even when I was a teenager and when I was in my 20s, I never had the desire to get a tattoo. Tattoos are very common in our society. They are far more common than they were in the 1990s. They are very popular with millennials. I'm assuming Generation Z as well. I don't really know. Many people have one or two tattoos, and they can easily cover it up. I'm not really addressing these people with this video. I mean, some of my close friends have tattoos. I'm sort of addressing the people who have a lot of tattoos, meaning enough tattoos that they're going to be fully visible. They're going to cover a large amount of skin. This includes the so-called arm sleeve, where a network of ink goes down the arm, especially the forearm. And therefore, when you're wearing a t-shirt, your tattoo sleeve will be fully visible. That's the purpose, right? So I don't have anything, I'm not trying to be the Karen moral busybody telling you what you can and cannot do. I guess it's your choice, right? You still have the choice to do what you want. But let's look at where did tattoos come from, and what characteristics, what aspects do they have in our culture today? Well, who knows where tattoos originally came from? They are referenced in Roman and Greek history for prisoners or for purposes of spying or looking at spies. I'm not really sure. But I do know more recently in our history it was basically sailors from Europe going out into the other continents, especially going into the Pacific region, where the Pacific Islanders, either in Hawaii or New Zealand or those islands, there is a long tradition of tattooing. At least the men there would tattoo, and they were often warlike people. So they had the mastery of the art of tattooing, which they taught to sailors, and then they returned to places like Britain. In the 1600s, there was a reference I was reading on a book about history in the 17th century where someone, I think this was either in the Netherlands, there was a young man with his face painted orange in the manner of one of the Indian tribes in North America, which perhaps he may have seen that fashion. I don't know if that was actually something common, though, to see. That was probably a little strange, but yeah, it does show you that at that time it was coming over from the fringes of the known world, from the places where there be monsters, as they would write in the margins of the map. Here be monsters and strange, interesting tribes. Sailors, of course, they may have been, they weren't exactly an underclass. I don't know, maybe they were, but they were poor for sure. Some of them ended up becoming pirates. Life was short. It was in some ways similar to a prison, being even in a merchant ship, especially being in the Royal Navy. That was similar to being in a prison. And of course, there is a connection with people in concentration camps later in history in the 20th century receiving tattoos, of course. So, but the sailors weren't forcing it on themselves, unless maybe they had to indicate membership of a group, perhaps. But I'm getting to that. It's a bit different in a concentration camp, but there is a similar idea there, being in this underclass, being marked. And that's the idea. A tattoo is now, you are now a marked person. Maybe not so visibly, but there is a mark on you. It's your own creation, but still a mark. And so, is there any, I guess it depends on what your paradigm is, if that's going to have any significance for you. In many paradigms, you think, oh, well, what does it matter? And better yet, I'll pierce my ears, and maybe I'll make my tongue, who knows, get a stud through the tongue, and carry on. I know that's a bit different from tattooing, but if the body is made in the image of God, then that's another paradigm where you would start to want to be a bit more skeptical about these things. Now, I know a lady who's formerly an actress. I've met several actors and actresses in my life, partly because I worked in museums, but the lady I was talking with recently, she was telling me that, she doesn't have any tattoos either, and to be an actress or an actor, it can often be a disadvantage if you have a very visible tattoo, because it can limit your potential to be given the job for certain roles. Especially, maybe if it's a tattoo you could hide. So being an actor or an actress, I just thought I would throw that in, that they have to. Some of them probably have tattoos, but it's not always a benefit, because you want to have more of a malleable, pure exterior, I guess, so you can add things on and change your appearance. Not that it's always good to change your appearance, but you know what I'm saying, for the purpose of acting. But that's not such a major point here. I just wanted to add that in. I will add that the tattoos are a sign of one's ability to take pain, and I will give you people credit for that who get tattoos, because it shows that you can take a lot of pain. Tattoos are, of course, ubiquitous today. They're all around. Women have tattoos seemingly as much as men do, and I do not find this attractive. I don't think it's a stretch to say that many men don't find that attractive. Some men do, not all men, but I think a lot of men, it's not so attractive to see a chick covered in tattoos. It's not rebellious to have tattoos these days. It would have been rebellious maybe as recently as the 1980s. My friend Sin, when he was a teenager in the 1980s, he was a member of Asian gangs, and he has numerous explicit marks indicating his membership in the gang, which are still on his body, in places like on his neck, his torso, his arms. Now, let's think of the kinds of tattoos. I'm not getting all into the artistry and image. That's just a whole other subject. But the practice of using ink, using an ink other than black. Greens, blues, yellows, reds, oranges, whatever. Over the years, these colors are going to fade. If you keep it black, and I'm not necessarily advocating tattoos, but if it's a simple black tattoo, and you don't try to do too much, pattern, provided you have a good person who knows what they're doing, then that tattoo should last longer. But I'm not necessarily advocating tattoos. I'm just saying, like, when you involve these colors, it's going to leach over the years. It's going to fade, especially the blending together at the borders between colors on your arm. It kind of looks like gangrene. It doesn't look good. Especially on anyone. I guess a person of lighter complexion, they can experiment with more colors, but that's what could result. I guess people of darker complexion can get colors on them, but it's a bit more difficult because more blending together of all the pigments. So I think those are some of the main points I wanted to make. When we're talking about these, the origins of tattoos and, different cultures using them, and maybe even if you admit, maybe it's not a good thing in the West, and maybe too many people have too much. That's the whole reason I'm responding to this is that it's everyone having them, and it's gotten to be too many people with tattoos, and of these many people with tattoos, too many of them are like have excessive amounts of tattoos all over their body. That is really something that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be discouraged. There's a bit of a spectrum here. It's not. I'm not. Not saying, oh, you have one little tattoo behind your ear, or you have a tattoo. It's like, okay, I'm not really coming down on everyone here, but generally this cultural trend needs to be addressed. So even if you said, well, okay, well, maybe it's not so great in the West, and that we should tone it down, but those Pacific Islanders and those people in whatever part of Africa or Asia or wherever, it's like for them when they're tattooed appearance, that's part of their unique culture, and they're expressing themselves, and it's good for them. It's fine for them. This is the false ideology of cultural relativism, because in my paradigm, all people of the world are made in the image of God, and this has implications for the ways we should treat the body. So I would say no, it's still not good for those peoples on the fringes outside Western civilization. It's still not good for them, the same way aberration isn't good for anyone to practice, no matter the culture or the place. So just to conclude, digital tattoos coming, it's kind of different. It's not ink, or maybe there might be some ink, but the idea of it's like an electronic implant, like a tiny microchip. So it's not really an artistic or an aesthetic thing like we've been discussing here, but it kind of does relate. But suffice to say that they will place tiny microchips inside of you, and this isn't science fiction anymore. They're already talking about it. Obviously, for all the stuff that's been going on, this information will be inside you. It will be scanned. It will show your Vaseline history. It will reveal information about your banking, your finances, your social credit score, like they do in China, other things. So it'll be a very good way to control you by the state, but it will also be very convenient. It'll allow you to travel easier, pay easier. You'll just swipe your hand or your arm or wherever it is, and it'll just beep, and you're through, and it'll be so much more easier for you. Yeah, for a little bit, I guess. But I wouldn't want that in me. I mean, obviously you wouldn't be surprised about that. So just to conclude, Revelation, the book of Revelation, chapter 13. I'm just going to read a few verses here. Basically, there's kind of like a beast coming up. It's being worshipped by much of the world, and this beast blasphemes against God. Continuing verse 15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So it's saying, if you don't worship the image of the beast in these end times, in this apocalyptic ending to the world, if you don't worship this, if you don't buy into the system and go along, then you could be killed. And verse 16, and he causeth all people, meaning all people, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Yikes. So that's why people are, they're like kind of concerned about these digital tattoos. Now, do I think this is the end times? I don't know, but there is something, a little eyebrow raising about the specifically the mentioning of needing this mark to buy and sell, which is very similar to what the authorities are telling us about needing one to travel, and they want us on the cashless society. Well, how do you think it's eventually going to go in a cashless society? Surely you'll be using your card for a little bit. You'll be using your debit card, your credit card. Eventually that's just going to go into your digital tattoo. So, hasta luego, amigos.